Everyone, welcome back to a new post today. Law and order is a state subject, but then why does the center impose the Armed Forces Special Powers Act in few of the states? And recently it has been extended in few of the areas of the northeastern state. It is still in force in Assam, Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland and Manipur. Now, this act is imposed in those areas which are designated as disturbed by the center and the state government. So, how does the center interfere in the law and order situation when law and order is the responsibility of the state government, and we being a federal power, the center cannot overtake the powers of the state? So the origin can be found in Article 355 of the Indian Constitution, which says that Article 355 imposes a duty on the central government to protect every state from external aggression and internal disturbance, and to ensure that the government of every state is carried on in accordance with the Constitution. Now, in the light of this article, the Armed Forces Special Powers Act was enacted way back in 1958. Previously, during the British era also, we had such an act which was brought in the form of an ordinance by the British government to deal with the Quit India movement, and later on we brought this act to deal with Assam and Manipur in the beginning, especially to deal with the disturbed areas in Nagaland. Nagaland got separated from Assam in the 1963, and therefore still there are demands for secession, separatism, that is the separate state for a greater Nagaland, and also a separate flag and a separate constitution also. So to arrest such internal disturbance, the Armed Forces Special Power Act gives certain powers to the armed forces. However, there are criticisms regarding this act on the grounds of human rights violation, which have been raised even at the United Nations as well. So in the light of this Article 355, the central government enacted the Armed Forces Special Powers Act in the year 1958. It was then called as Armed Forces Assam and Manipur Special Powers Act of 1958. It is an act of the Parliament that grants special powers to the Indian Armed Forces to maintain public order in disturbed areas. The Armed Forces Assam and Manipur Special Powers Ordinance was brought about way back in 1958. It was promulgated by the then President of India, Rajendra Prasad, in May 1958. Then it was later replaced by an act called as Armed Forces Manipur and Assam Special Powers Act. The Armed Forces Assam and Manipur Special Powers Act empowers the governors of the state, the administrators of the Union Territory, to declare areas in the concerned state and the Union Territory as disturbed, where there is law and order violation, or where the law and order is not improper, where there is a external aggression or even internal disturbance. Initially, the act was applicable to Assam and Manipur, but later the territorial scope of this act was expanded to the 7 states of the northeast. That's Assam, Meghalaya, Nagaland, Tripura, Arunachal Pradesh and Mizoram. In addition, therefore, the words of Assam Armed Forces Assam and Manipur Special Powers Act was replaced by only Armed Forces Special Powers Act of 1958, and therefore we get the acronym of ASPA. So, what are the powers that the armed forces gets under the disturbed areas? According to this act, the area that is proclaimed as disturbed, in that area the army officer has the following powers. Now, he can fire upon or use any kind of force, even if it causes death, and this has been a ground of human right violation, against any person who is acting against law and order in the disturbed area. He can destroy arms dumps, hideouts, and prepared for fortified position or sheltering or training of camps from which the armed attacks may be made, and they may also have armed gangs and also armed volunteers. To arrest without any warrant anyone who has committed a cognizable offence and is reasonably suspected of having done so and using force. To enter and search any premises in order to make any such arrest. To stop and search any vehicle or vessel reasonably suspected to carry such persons or weapons. Any person arrested or taken into custody under this act shall be made present over the officer in charge of the nearest police station. Army officers have legal immunity for their actions. There can be no prosecution, suit or any other legal proceeding against anyone acting under the law. Nor is the government judgments on why the area is found to be disturbed subject to judicial review, but this was recently cancelled out by the Supreme Court. Now, protection of the persons acting in good faith under this act, they are protected from prosecution, suit and other legal proceedings, except when it is sanctioned by the central government. In 2016, let me tell you that the landmark ruling of the Supreme Court ended the immunity of the armed forces from prosecution. And now, as I told you, the act is applicable in Assam, Manipur, Arunachal Pradesh and Nagaland. Also, let me tell you that the United Nations and other NGOs dealing with human rights have raised their voices over violation of human rights because of the extensive powers given to the armed forces, especially in the disturbed acts. The Justice Jeevan Committee recommended repealing of this act because it called it draconian and colonial error. Along with that, the Second Administration Reforms Commission has also asked for repealing of this act, and many other commissions as well. Supreme Court has also criticized the act, saying it is draconian because of the immunity given to the armed forces, and removed the immunity and said that their actions are subject to judicial review, and if they have committed wrong, then they have to be punished for the same as well, because everybody is equal in the eyes of law. So, upholding right to equality under Article 14. So, these are the most important points I thought I should be talking to you about the Armed Forces Special Powers Act, a very important law used by the government almost very frequently, especially in the northeastern states. And so, if you did, please do like, share and subscribe, and don't forget to comment at the end of the video. I shall see you in my new post. Until then, it's very happy learning.